Our objective is to do dynamic assessments. And if we looked at getting started, this is from the first video, it showed that we need to do inspections as required content. Looking at inspections, the first step is to explore inspections and dynamic assessments. We've already looked at the data model from the prior video. You can scroll through this, but this chart is, I think, very helpful. Dynamic assessments are both visit and non-visit based use cases where inspections are built for an on-site visit. I'm sure we could find ways to tweak that, but the clear use case for inspections is for on-site visits. Dynamic assessments can be used to assess the needs of social services or benefits like care plans, and they can use dependencies and conditional logic. So inspections, and they use the word up here, which is interesting, they call it static assessments. And they're used to measure progress against care plan goals. So it's interesting that the first 10 minutes of this unit was that discussion. Then they're going to go 5 minutes each through these. So they're moving very fast. So in that same way, we can move fast. Although I think it's interesting because we do have these objects available to us. So I'm going to jump directly to this fourth session, which is the set up the action plan templates, because they included this nice recap, which I think is helpful, in that you create assessment indicator definitions, which are checklist items, which you group into a checklist, which is called an assessment task definition. How's that for jargon? In the next video, we'll talk about kind of the later phases, but I think it's worth quickly just understanding this sequence. First step is to create a regulatory authority because you have a master detail to regulatory code. And that code is then used when you build out an assessment indicator, which is an item. So if we jump to that section, they talk about an assessment indicator definition. And the idea is what condition is the plumbing. So this is a single item that you're working with. So you have an assessment indicator defined value, which is those pick lists, with a sequence that you can control. So it's an assessment indicator defined value. And then you're able to go back in, and this is from the assessment indicator definition, you're able to go into the related tab to get to the regulatory indicator, which would mean that you could connect it to a specific regulatory code. You can also create multi-select pick lists. So if there's more than one aspect of an item that you want to capture, you can capture it there as well. The last step is group these assessment indicators into a task definition. So an assessment task definition is just the checklist. So it's a collection of these assessment indicators. But you can see there's not a direct connection between the assessment task definition and the assessment indicator definition. It actually goes through a junction object, which is the assessment task indicator definition. But again, since we're really not going to do much with this, it's worth knowing that these objects exist as standard objects in Salesforce, but that's about as far as we want to take. The last step is to create violations or a inspection assessment indicator. What they have you do is to go out and change a pick list value to add a failed violation, and so it's a way of creating this violation checkbox as part of the pick list value questions. But looking at the object manager for this inspection assessment indicator, note that its master detail is to assessment task, but it has a lookup to the assessment indicator definition. So the master is to assessment with a lookup here. So the next video we can talk about this collection here is kind of once you've built out these group checklists, how do you then use them in an action template to create action plans?